Alright guys, nice little project for the X4 today, a couple accessories. The one I have been waiting for now since I ordered the X4, which has been a couple months, and that is my worn 3,500 pound winch. I ordered this when I bought the X4, but as with most of the X4 accessories right now, everything is kind of on back order, so it's been a wait. We're going to get to this today, and of course I got the Yamaha genuine winch mounting kit that goes along with it. And we're also going to be installing a ThrottleMaxx pedal extender on the Wolverine today. If you guys do any kind of long-term riding, then I believe this is an absolute must-have no matter what kind of side-by-side you have. You guys know I have one in my 500, I had one in the 1000, and these things are absolutely great. Not only do they help take the bounciness out of the pedal, which with the X4 it's not bad because it is a fly-by-wire system, but in low range, if you're trying to go over slow technical rock stuff, you can still get the bouncing on the pedal, and you do still get a little bit of jerkiness. But even if you don't have to worry about taking the jerkiness out when you're on long day rides, then this thing can act just like a cruise control. You can have your foot completely relaxed while maintaining even pressure on the throttle, and you can just cruise right along and not have to worry about any leg fatigue. So I think since this guy is just an easy 1-bolt installation, we'll go ahead and throw this on here first because it will literally only take a couple minutes. One 10mm bolt, and then we'll get to tearing into this winch. So literally all this takes is you slide this up over your throttle pedal, like so, and then you just simply 1 bolt through to hold it. Now if you guys are skeptical about the actual function of this guy and whether it works or not, then I did a whole video when I installed it on my 1000 to show you the difference going over rough terrain with the ThrottleMaxx and without the ThrottleMaxx. So you guys can check that video out later and see that this guy does actually work as advertised. And that is literally all it takes. Alright, let's dig into these boxes. So, winch mounting kit. Of course, we have some quick basic installation instructions here. Looks like we'll have to pull the bottom skid plate off and swap out some bolts. Not too bad of stuff. Of course, we have our giant mounting plate, which is what the winch is going to actually mount to. Some various bolts. Here's our plug switch for our controller. And of course, some wires. Hey, a box within a box. Go figure. There she is. Here's our controller. Winch solenoid. Wiring harnesses here. A whole crap load of books. Wow. Phew. We'll read those later. Of course, a nice heavy duty fair lead. Wow, with a nice beefy roller on the bottom. I like that. This is the kind you want if you're using for a snowplow. And of course, the actual winch itself. Look at that beefy guy. 3,500 Warren Pro Vantage. So the first thing we got to do is remove the skid plate. There are just 6 T30 Torx bolts that got to come out, and that will allow us to get in there to bolt everything then up from underneath. There's that. Step 1 done. The next thing we got to do is mount our fair lead to our winch mounting plate, because once the winch is on here, you won't be able to get the bolts through here. And they take an 8mm Allen wrench for these, and a 17mm wrench for the nuts. And we're just going to bolt them through this way. So now that we got our fair lead on here, this is just going to sit right up in this little slot here, and you will see here in the back we have 2 holes that are already threaded, and they receive these 2 bolts here that are included in the kit. And we're just going to put these on hand tight for now till we get everything else installed, and then once everything's installed, we'll tighten everything back up. So basically all I did was I slid the winch in from this side. It goes in pretty smoothly. It's not overly big. You got enough room in here to work. Don't forget when you do this to thread your cable through your fair lead. I just have it up here out of the way for the moment. And if you look here in the kit, there's 2 different size bolts. There's 2 longer ones and 4 shorter ones. The reason why there's so many bolts, you only need 4 of them, is of course different machines are going to take different sized bolts. For the Yamaha though, we're going to use 2 of these shorter bolts. It's going to go in the back holes here, and then the 2 longer bolts that are included are going to go in the front right here. And don't forget to put your lock nuts on them as well. Alright, so I got the 2 bolts here in the back. I'm putting the bolts in the front, and I've got to give a quick shout out for Yamaha, give them props, because they even think enough ahead to put this little cutout here that allows you to get your wrench right up in there and not have to fight around this lip. You know, something simple like that, but that shows foresight enough to know that guys are going to be installing a winch and not have to fight around something like this. And I just wanted to take time to mention that. That's pretty cool if you ask me. Now once we have all these 4 bolts here in the bottom loose, we are going to go back and tighten up these guys good and snug. I think the instructions say 12 foot-pounds for these guys in the back. And once those are tight, we're going to go ahead and tighten all 4 bolts that mount our winch to our winch plate. Now I like to, as far as adjustment, I'm going to push this clear back as far as it'll go. That way the angle here up to our fair lead isn't as steep. If you have the winch pulled forward, it's going to make this angle in here a little steeper. So I just like to push them back as far as we can, get it as far away from the fair lead as we can to kind of reduce this angle. And I will eventually be replacing the steel cable with a synthetic. Not a big fan of steel cable. I think that winch manufacturers ought to just go ahead and put synthetic cable on winches from the factory. This one, however, doesn't have it. It has old-fashioned steel. So this will be getting replaced here one of these days. So now comes the fun part of running all the wiring. So as per the instructions here, this is going to be super easy to wire. All these wires are actually numbered. You'll see this has blue number 6. This has a yellow, and it's a number 5, I believe the instructions say. But the instructions, you know, tell you everything here, which is easy. Everything's color-coded, blue, red. So basically these 2 guys go from the winch, and they're going to run up here to the solenoid, which the solenoid is going to get mounted right in here somewhere like that. And then you have just your 2 power cables that's going to run up. We'll probably come up through here somewhere, and they get hooked up right here to your battery. Pretty easy stuff. And of course they give you nice little boots to go over all your wire ends as well. One thing you got to keep in mind, if you see here for your power wires, there are 2 small loops, 2 big loops. Big loops go to the battery, the small loops will go to your solenoid. So make sure you don't get these backwards, or else you're going to have to undo them and flip them. Now I want to mention here real quick, the solenoid, the instructions does not tell you what it mounts with. But for my guess, this little pack, which is 91261 Rev A1, comes with these black bolts here with these lock nuts, and it looks like that the little spacer here is the right size for this. So I'm taking it, these are the bolts, also because they're black, and that'll help blend the bolts into the plastic so you don't see them. And if you guys are wondering how in the world you're going to drill the holes for that solenoid without tearing half this machine apart, as you can see, I was able to finagle my cordless drill in there just enough that I could get the 1 hole drilled. And then for the second one, I just measured from hole to hole, which is 3 inches. I marked it here on the outside and then just drilled up from the outside. Made it a lot easier, and I didn't have to tear any of this apart. With our holes drilled, we'll go ahead and throw this in there. The bolts for it, well, at least the bolts I figure are for this, are 8mm. Alright, so now we just got to run our wires. As you can see here, I've already got my blue wire and yellow wire hooked up to my winch. And they will just run up in here, and they will get hooked to the correct terminals down here to our solenoid, which is, you know, clearly shown in the instructions. And they just get fastened with the bolts and lock nuts that are supplied in the kit. And as you guys here can see too, the 2 bolts here for the solenoid right there, once they're installed, you're never going to notice those unless you're intentionally looking for them, because they are hidden back in here where you can't really see. In fact, you'll probably see that yellow wire sticking out there a lot more than you will those, but a little bit of mud will cover that up and you'll never know it's there. Alright, so power wires are run black and red, run from the solenoid up to our battery. There's this little hole right here. You guys can see I ran my wires up through. There's this little shelf right there. I looped them around, and of course hooked the red to the positive, black to the negative, re-zip tied everything together there so it's nice and neat, and you still have access to this accessory plug, whatever that is for. I don't know if this is going to be for the winch or not. We'll find out. And then I just cut a slit here in my boot, terminal boot, to allow it to slip down over my power wire. So now comes the fun part of loosening our firewall, pulling it forward so we can then mount our winch plug, which goes into the glove box. And just like you guys saw in the video where I had my gauge replaced, there are just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 4mm bolts, Allen bolts, to take off of that, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 10mm bolts there, and this thing will pull away enough to get in there to our dash. Alright, so I got this pulled back so you can see here, right here is the hole we've got to drill in order to mount the plug for our winch controller, which is just inside the glove box here. So real easy. I think it's a 7/8 inch hole. If you don't have a 7/8 inch hole saw, then you can just use a utility knife and be very, very careful and take your time, and you can cut that out fairly easily. Heat the blade up with like a lighter. It'll cut right through that plastic like butter. But I should have the appropriate size hole saw if I can find it, so let's do some drilling. Alright, unfortunately my 7/8 inch hole saw bit looks like I have hit something with it that may have been metal, so I don't know how this is going to go. I'm probably going to regret still trying to use it. We'll see. But this is soft plastic. Oh, she still got the job done. Woohoo! Alright. So now all we got to do is first off feed all our wires through the hole. And then it just gets screwed fast with 2 self-tapping screws. And I suggest not dropping these, but I also suggest probably doing these by hand, since they are just going to be tapping into nothing but plastic. You don't want to over tighten and strip them. And that is installed. This little pocket right here then, little storage spot they give you for shoving your remote in there. Done. Now this guy gets key on power simply by, if you see this wire right here, this is our 12 volt accessory wire. All we're going to do is maybe unplug this guy. I need my little screwdriver. Push down. Maybe. We're going to unplug that. And then this has 2 wires here for the wiring harness. The one plugs in on that side, like so. And then the other gets connected. Oh, let's reroute this. I don't like that up there messing with our throttle cable. We got all this room, it don't need to be thrown way up there. Gets connected to the other side, and now that ties in, so when our key's on, we will have power. And this wire has to run down to our relay. I think we'll go through right here where our differential vent lines are run. Well, actually there's this hole right here that might work a little better. This guy right here, I'm going to try to fish him down in through there. Alright, we got our firewall all back together. I ran my wire through here, down, and it's in there. I got everything zip tied out of the way. I don't know if you guys can see this or not, but there are also included these little connectors here. That's probably going to be all black and hard for you guys to see. But these have fittings already installed. If you want to run a regular rocker switch, which I will probably put in so I don't have to use that wand the whole time, then you can do that. But all that I have left to do now is to hook my hook on the end of my cable, and we can give this guy a test run. Alright, so I got my hook on. This was the last thing I needed to do. Now, one thing that this doesn't have is a winch stop, which is just a rubber piece that goes on here that keeps this from really hitting hard on here and dinging up. And Kyla is shaking the camera as Mommy tries to hold her in the camera at the same time. But we got everything hooked up. We're going to turn the key on. And we'll wind this back in the rest of the way. Hopefully she works. Oh, look at that. Alright. And we're good. So with the help of the Yamaha winch accessory kit, the integration of the winch into the X4 was super easy. It was super smooth. Everything was pretty much plug and play. The most involved thing was cutting out that little hole for the plug for the winch controller. And again, I'll probably just put a regular rocker switch in eventually, because I hate having to string that thing out every time. But if you guys are wondering if installing a winch on your X4 is something you can tackle yourself, well, then I would say 100% you can. Especially now that you have this basic run-through video to help you with the installation progress. So the winch is in there. She's looking good, at least for now, till the first mud hole I hit and she gets all covered in mud. But anyway, I hope you guys found this video helpful. Make sure you comment below if you have. And until next time, guys, keep on riding. Appalachian Mountain Riders is brought to you in part by the following. The Honda Side-by-Side Club, because who knows the machines better than the owners that use them every day. Walker Evans Racing. When the path requires more than just ordinary, head on over to walkerevansracing.com. Torque Locker from Torque Masters Industries. When you want to explore the unexplored, head on over to torquemasters.com. And by my gracious supporters on Patreon.